ಇದು ನಂದು ಇದು ಕಾಣಂಗಿಲ್ರಿ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಸೈಡಿಗೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma'am.
Morning, ma'am.
Yeah.
Morning, ma'am.
Again, we are meeting this year again online. So, how's you doing? Did you take your books home? How many of you took the books home? Hello. How many of you took the books home? No reply. Neeraj. Neeraj, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you take the books home?
Yes, ma'am.
Really? Did you take
Yeah.
biochemistry home?
I took all the books, ma'am.
You took all the books. So, hoping that all of you have taken the books. If not, you have the PDFs. So, at least 2 to 3 chapters you can download and get it printed, because I know that there's a lot of screen time going on, colleges as well as your personal screen time. And it's always nice to have a hard copy, especially when you are memorizing things and trying to connect the dots, right? Do you agree? Okay, how many of you remember what we were up to before this lockdown has begun, right? So let's refresh. We were talking about the amino acid and protein chemistry. It's a huge chemistry, and then we'll go into each amino acid metabolism and the protein metabolism. So we had hardly finished around 1 or 2 classes on amino acid chemistry. So I'll just slide over the things, refresh your memory, just 5 minutes, right? We all started like how the class is going to be structured, right? So this was how we structured. We wanted to know about amino acids. Then we would form the peptide bond between the amino acids and know about biologically important peptides. And then larger peptides, which are also called as proteins. We would classify them, know their properties and the biological importance. And then there was structural organization of proteins like primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary, that we would have gone through. And then the methods of separation of proteins. So as of now, we are still in forming a peptide bond between the amino acids. So what we did in the class was read something about why proteins are that important, read everything. As I said, they are the ABCs of the protein chemistry as well as metabolisms, the amino acids. So we got to know about the amino acids. What are they? What is this alpha carbon atom? How many groups are there? It was a carboxyl group on one side, amino group, and a side chain group. Then we went about what are the standard amino acids. 20 amino acids we went through, and then the 21st and 22nd amino acids, right? Then we went how to classify the amino acids. There, depending on what basis I would like to, like whether it's a chemical nature I would like to consider, it's the polarity, nutritional requirement. So this is quite important in your first internal assessment, hope so, which will be offline. So one thing that would come for a 5 marks or as a part of long question is the classification of the amino acids. In that, the nutritional requirement and metabolic classification of the amino acid would definitely come as a 3 marks question, right? Essential, non-essential, metabolic classifications like glucogenic, ketogenic, both glucogenic. So definitely you got to go through with the amino acid examples, right? This is all how we classified. So go through once again with any standard book that you have, right, up till now. And then we also went through the physical properties like tastes, and the reactions, that is the decarboxylation. Then coming to what are Zwitter ions and isoelectric point, another 3 marks questions. So you should write a note about 3 marks on Zwitter ions, isoelectric point. Now you are at home with all the comfort. So what again, one advice which is again free, hope so you take it, that write all the 3 marks questions in one book. That will be for the first year. It will be very handy if you write all the 3 marks question answers. Collecting points from, try and make it a complete answer, right? Write what is Zwitter ions, isoelectric point or a pH. Then we also came why these amino acids act as buffer. Like that, the same property of the amino acids will be reflected as proteins acting as buffer, right? So now we are here. We know the amino acids in and out. They are friends now. Now we are going to form a bond between 2 amino acids. So what are those? It is called as peptide bond, right? So peptide bond is again 3 marks. Hope so you make it. You will have these slides if you want. So write down in points, make a complete sentence, because in slides we would just give the words which are important. So remaining all we try to connect with our words that we won't find in slides. So write down the points and try and make sentences out of that, right? So how do we define a peptide bond? So peptide bond is an amide bond. So from between 2 amino acids, right? So we take one amino acid, it has got an alpha carbon atom in the center, a carboxyl group and an amino group. Now what happens, the alpha carboxyl group of one amino acids will form a amide bond between the alpha amino group of another amino acids, right? So carboxyl group and the consecutive, that is the amino acid which is just beside it, the amino group of another amino acid. So this amide bond is called as a peptide bond. So what you are going to write for 3 marks in peptide bond formation, right? So you got to write the characteristics, how this peptide bond is there. So it is an uncharged bond. So the amino acids are charged and at any given pH they are ionizable, but this bond after formation is uncharged. This is very important, partial double bond character. So whenever you are going to write a peptide bond, it has got a partial double bond character. This terminology should be there in your answer. So what is this? We have found the peptide bond, right? The elimination of water will happen, right? This is one amino acid. This is another amino acids. The carboxyl group of one amino acid with an amino group of another amino acid will form a peptide bond, which is an uncharged bond. It has got a partial double bond character. It is rigid, it is planar and a shorter than a single bond. So when you are talking about bonds, it's a single bond and a double bond. Single bond will be less strong and a bit longer. It is 1.49 nanometer is the single bond. Double bond has got a length of 1.27 nanometer. But this peptide bond is between a double bond and a single bond with a length of 1.32 nanometer. So it is longer than a double bond but shorter than a single bond. So it's a partial double bond in nature, right? And definitely when you talk about the spatial arrangement of this bond, it's a trans bond. You know, trans, it's the angle between how these bonds are in space. That is the spatial configuration. They are trans bond, because what happens if it were a cis, then there would be a steric interference of the functional groups, which could range from a single carbon atom to around 9 carbon atoms, right? So spatially it would not be a stronger bond because of the interference. So it's a cis, it's a trans bond, not a cis bond, right? And the carboxyl and the amino group of the peptide bond are uncharged and will neither accept or release protons, unlike the amino acids. So why this peptide bond is important? It is the stabilization of the structure of proteins and peptides. It's due to this bond. We also have the other bonds in peptides and proteins. that is the sulfur containing amino acid would definitely form a disulfide linkage, right? And hydrogen atoms would be there. Then the electrochemical charges would be there. But the major stabilization structure of these proteins and peptides will come from the peptide bond, right? So it forms the backbone of the structures of peptides and proteins, and definitely the hydrogen bonds will also stabilize the secondary structure. Coming to this peptide bonds, because of these peptide bonds, we have found out a method of quantification of proteins, that is the biuret reaction. It tells you the length of the how many peptide bonds. The reaction, that is the violet color that we get, will intensify with the number of peptide bonds. That is, a larger protein will give a more intense color in the biuret reaction. So we can quantify the proteins, right? And enzymatic and chemical cleavage permits the sequencing and determination of primary structure of proteins, right? This chemical cleavage, the particular bond will be there, so we can cleave, and we can target the cleavage up to 50th peptide bond. So when we sequence and determine the primary structure, what is primary structure of protein? It's the number of the amino acids and the sequence in which it is arranged. So it's simple. So primary structure of proteins can be amenable by the cleavage, right? So the reactions, what will happen with the side groups, right? You got to know each one can be a 3 marks question. Especially there are few that are important, right? So reactions due to COH group, it could be quite boring with having only the reactions, but turn the table, that is, see from the other side. So this question becomes all the more important when I will be asking on biogenic amines. 3 marks question. So you would have never thought that decarboxylation reactions would come as biogenic amines. So what will you write about biogenic amines? These biogenic amines they are the amines which have got important biochemical functions and are formed by the decarboxylation reactions of the amino acids. That is to the COOH group. So histidine is an amino acid. When it is decarboxylated, that is removal of a CO2, it's going to form histamine. So with all these pollutants around, and we as metro people, we know what is histamine, right? It's one of the allergen causing. So whenever an allergen enters the body, we react to that allergen, those who are hypersensitive. That is, there is release of histamine by the mast cells of the body. So these histamine is going to cause all the signs and symptoms of the allergy, that is itchiness, that is redness, right? That is bumps that you see on your skin, that is hypersensitivity. All this is due to histamine. So these are biogenic amines. Similarly, we have certain amines which have got important biochemical functions. Another one is the dopamine, that is from decarboxylation of the dopa, that is a derived amino acids. Then 5-hydroxytryptophan will form 5-hydroxytryptamine, another biogenic amines. So you got to form a 3 marks question answer on biogenic amines, and write as many examples as possible, refer 1 or 2 textbooks and write all the biogenic amines at one place. So when it reacts with ammonia, it forms amide, right? Biogenic amines, and these are amide. Example, aspartic acid is an amino acid. When it reacts with ammonia, asparagine, glutamine, right? These are amide formation. What are the reactions due to amino group? As I said, transamination reaction, right? 3 marks question again, very important. Here the alpha amino group of an amino acid can be transferred to an keto acid, alpha keto acid, which will form the completely new amino acids and a new keto acids, because there is transfer of amino group from one amino acid to another amino acids. So what are the importance of these transamination reactions? These are important for interconversion of amino acids and also for biosynthesis of non-essential amino acids. So when we started the chapter, we were talking about what are these essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. We said that essential amino acids are a must in our diet. Non-essential, our body is going to produce. So how this body is going to produce these non-essential amino acids? These non-essential amino acids will be produced from what we eat through the diet, right? Whatever the essential amino acids will be eating, those carbon skeletons will remain the same. The group conversion, that is interconversion, happens when a amine group is given to a different keto acid. I become a new keto acid, the keto acid becomes a new amino acid. So this is how the interconversion of the amino acids and the non-essentiality that we call as becomes possible, right? And this amino group also helps in the detoxification of ammonia, gluconeogenesis from amino acids. When we say gluconeogenesis, you would have studied in carbohydrate metabolism. That is, neo is a new glucose. How does this new glucose molecule formed in the body? This is by again transaminations from the amino acids. Coming to oxidative deamination. This here, the NH3 is completely removed, and this is coupled with an oxidation process, right? So alpha amino group is removed from the amino acids to form the corresponding keto acid. There is no another amino acid involved. It's only one amino acid. So I am losing the amino group, and thus I am becoming a keto acid, and then the ammonia is going to be detoxified by getting converted into urea. That urea cycle is also important. We'll go in detail with that, right? So we take a keto acid, again it undergoes oxidative deamination, it forms alpha ketoglutarate, right? So this is how. Then formation of carb amino compound for the sake of completion, right? Carbon dioxide adds to the amino group to form the carb amino compounds. This is the buffering function that we put it on the amino acids. It serves as a mechanism for the transport of carbon dioxide from the tissues and the lungs by the hemoglobin. It forms the carb amino hemoglobin. Coming to one of the color reactions, which is called as the ninhydrin reaction. Here, when it is heated with ninhydrin, you would have performed it in the practical. So when it is heated with ninhydrin, it undergoes oxidative deamination and decarboxylation. It forms a blue colored complex, right? So this is usually done after chromatography and electrophoresis. So what is this chromatography and electrophoresis? We sound very hi-fi because it's just the start of your chemistry, but it's integral procedures, the chromatography and the electrophoresis. This is the procedure for separation of the amino acids. Chromatography, what will happen? There will be a paper. It's called as a thin layer paper chromatography or a gel chromatography. So we put a mixture of amino acids, and because they have a different mass and a charge, so when a mobile phase is put up, they will travel accordingly. If the mass is high, they will travel slow. If the mass is less, they will travel faster. And then we take out the paper and then spray a ninhydrin solution. So whichever the amino acid is there, we can recognize depending upon their refractory factor, RF factor. We'll go in detail. So remember why we are going to do all this. Why am I supposed to separate the amino acids? It's not my business as a doctor, right? I need not learn. I'm not going to be a basic scientist that I got to learn how this mixture of amino acid, which amino acids. Again, turn around the tables, and as a doctor, how will you approach this? Why you need to know this? There's something called as inborn errors of metabolism, right? Amino acid metabolism, inborn errors. Here, amino acidureas, there are amino acids being excreted in the urine. That is going to cause a error of metabolism, that is going to give out signs and symptoms. Though they are very rare, they are there. So when you are dealing with an inborn error of metabolism, especially in the pediatric age group, because these flare up in early life. So you have a baby who throws up, like he vomits around 10 times, whatever he eats he vomits, and he's not putting on weight, he's not able to thrive, and because of the decreased nutrition he's having frequent coughs, frequent upper respiratory infections, skin infections. So how are you going to approach this? So you need to have the deep knowledge about it. Could be an amino acid inborn error of metabolism, right? So when you go for the management involves the diagnosis as well as the treatment, right? When you are going to manage such kind of a case, you got to know that there is some entity which is called as inborn error of metabolism of amino acids, and I need to know which amino acid is at faulty metabolism. So I need to know the amino acids which is not being metabolized. So this is how you come back to the basic biochemistry, ask for amino acid urea analysis, then what is the procedure involved in getting to know which amino acid is not getting metabolized? It's either the chromatography or the electrophoresis, and we also quantify. Here the urine or the blood would do. So got to know. So when you know the background, you got to know the basis, because it's first year you won't have any patient, right? But you got to remember it for life, right? So Nin-Hydrin reactions, the importance, right? And other reaction with the fluoronitro, dinitrobenzene, dancyl chloride, these are also there to determine the end terminal of the end of the amino acids. There are other reactions which are due to the side chain groups like hydroxylation and gamma carboxylation. So you know these blood clotting factors. So these blood clotting factors always have a series of glutamic acid on their structure. So the gamma carbon of this glutamic acid will undergo carboxylation, then they become activated blood clotting factors. So you study that in physiologies. The blood clotters are always there. They don't clot our blood, right? So when they are exposed, these amino acids are exposed to the surface of those clotting factors, then the gamma carboxylation happens, and then they are ready for the clotting process. So you got to know all this. Transmethylation. This is a 5 marks question. I hope so. You form a nice answer. This Saubhagya Lakshmi book is also good. They are given in detail right in the starting chapter. So you need not prepare from the later chapters and add on to the first. So it's just like notes. So transmethyl reactions, we have said the methyl group from S-adenosyl methionine is catalyzed. It forms the SAM, which is again needed for norepinephrine and epinephrine production, right? The glycosidic bonds. So the amide groups of asparagine and glutamine form the N-glycosidic bonds with the carbohydrate residues, right? Glycoproteins, which has got a carbohydrate moiety as well as protein moiety. So which is going to form the bond? Not a peptide bond, because there are no amino acids on both the sides. So one has got the amino acids, one has got the carbohydrate residues. So the bond is the glycosidic bond. There are again two types, O-glycosidic and N-glycosidic. We'll go through in detail, right? Interchange disulfide bond, 2-cysteine, right? C-Y-S-T-I-N-E. 2, when they form a disulfide bond, it's called as C-Y-S-T-E-I-N-E, cysteine, right? So remember those for disulfide bonds. These used to perform in practicals, right? Color reactions for amino acids, nitroprusside test, Milan's test. So here also you can know which are the amino acids which will give the xanthoprotic test positive, Hopkins-Coles test positive, Sakaguchi, diazo, right? So these you can just go through, right? These were important amino acids that we had gone through in the class, right? So coming to the peptide bond. What is a peptide bond? The carboxyl group of one amino acid is going to form a bond with the release of the water with the amino group of the consecutive amino acids, right? So always when you are writing the free amino group of whatever the long length of the peptide is always on the left hand side, right? And the free carboxyl end will always form on the right hand side. So valine, glycine, leucine. Imagine these three are ready to form a peptide, that is a tripeptide, right? So it will become valine, glycyl, leucine. So you are not going to write valine dot semicolon glycine. Valyl, glycyl, leucine, because it's going to be the precipitate, that is it's derived. All amino acids will always be read from left to right. Right, there are two amino acids. When they form, they are called as dipeptide. 3 amino acids will form tripeptide, but in a dipeptide only one peptide bond will be there. In a tripeptide only 2. So the peptide bonds are -1. N is the number of amino acid. N minus 1 is going to be your peptide bonds, right? So we have a range, right? It starts with dipeptide, tripeptide. We have insulin, which are again around 250 amino acids together. So coming to the biologically important peptides, again a 3 marks or a 5 marks question. If it comes for 5 marks, you are going to explain the importance of each of the important peptide, or else just name them, right? At least the names you should know. What is this aspartame? As we said, it's an artificial sweetener. Again, the combination of the amino acids will change the taste. Aspartate is a sour amino acid, sour to taste, whereas phenylalanine is bitter to taste. But when these two combine, it makes that compound 200 times more sweeter than the normal sugar. So these sugar-free capsules that under various names you get just to fool the diabetic people. This is nothing but the amino acids aspartate and the phenylalanine, right? So this aspartame, again minor tweaks here and there in the structure, different brands, right? So the artificial sweeteners. Whereas carnosine, it has got alanine and histidine. It's found in the skeletal muscles. It's involved in the myosin ATPase activation, right? It also facilitates the absorption of copper. Thyrotropin is a tripeptide. What is this thyrotropin? It's a hypothalamic hormone, right? Thyroid TSH release, right? This TRH is again thyrotropin releasing hormone, right? Thyrotropin releasing hormone will stimulate the anterior pituitary to synthesize the thyroid stimulating hormone TSH. So this thyrotropin is a tripeptide. Glutathione, again a 3 marks question, right? Glutathione. So when a glutathione is given, you do not know from where to start and where from this has been picked up, right? Write down these points. I hope so you'll get all the 3 marks, right? It's a tripeptide. Gamma glutamyl cystinyl glycine. You've got to remember this name. The least you can do is at least glutathione ke what are the 3 amino acids? It's a gamma glutamyl cystinyl glycine, also called as a pseudopeptide, because it's here the gamma carbon atom is involved, not as the alpha carbon usually in the peptide bond formation. So it is a part of this Neisser cycle. What is this Neisser cycle? When the absorption of the amino acid would be happening through the small intestine, they stay there in the intestinal luminal cells for about a week. So in the amino acid pool. So this is involved in the absorption of the amino acids, right? And they are involved in conjugation reactions in phase 2 of xenobiotic metabolism. So you will learn these xenobiotics again in last chapters, but here you got to have a connection, right? Glutathione is there also as well. So all this will form your answer. It acts to scavenge free radicals along with glutathione peroxidase and glutathione reductase, which has selenium, as we had also described in selenocysteine, right? 21st amino acids we had described that nowadays we have achieved this long life. First, the lifespan of people was around pre-independence era I am talking about. If you have read somewhere, it was like 40. Like one or the other infectious diseases, they would lose people. But now, because of the advances in the medical field, we have extended it. If there are no untoward accidents or other unnatural deaths, people die less of the disease. I'm talking it pre-corona era as well, right? So we had a life expectancy, decent life expectancy of about 60, right? But now the shift is in, we though will live 60 years, but we need to look young also. This is anti-aging. You need to be healthy, you need not have, not only health is absence of disease, but you need to be as young as 20s in your 50s. So this anti-aging, this is also called as an anti-aging type, right? Glutathione, because it scavenges the free radicals. What are free radicals? This is where the aging of each cell is there. Free radicals are highly reacting species that will damage the cell membrane and the components of the cell membrane, and hence once each cell, organs, tissues, organs, etc. So these glutathione will act to scavenge these free radicals along with the glutathione reductase and the peroxide. It's all both actions in one enzyme only, right? It's widely distributed in tissues except the brain. Every tissue has got this gamma glutamyl cysteine glycine, right? It including the RBCs. So here the synthesis is given. One is the cysteine. We'll start with the cysteine, glutamyl cysteine, glutamic cysteine synthase, glutathione synthase. So we get the gamma glutamyl cysteine glycine. So I have given all the points for a 5 marks glutathione cup, right? So you can just copy down the points. Functions will be, it is a biological antioxidant. It suppresses the oxidative stress by the peroxidase enzyme, right? Maintenance of biological activity of proteins, because once they are not damaged, they are in their active state. It prevents the formation of methemoglobin in RBCs. You will get to know in hemoglobin chemistry. Methemoglobin is not an apt hemoglobin for survival, right? It also maintains the RBC membrane stability. It participates in the absorption of amino acid in small intestinal mucosal cells and proximal renal tubules as well, and it helps in detoxifications. So this was one of the biologically important peptides. Don't lose the track, right? We were talking about biologically important peptides. We were naming aspartame, carnosine, thyrotropin. You can name for a 3 marks question, but once it comes to a 5 marks, you need to add the points. So in those, you can add, and glutathione can itself come as a 3 marks question. So a detailed. So again, we'll continue with the other biologically important peptides. One is the oxytocin. Oxytocin, you remember, it's an anti-respiratory hormone which stimulates the uterine contractions. So oxytocin infusion is given to the in labor, where you want to increase the strength of the uterine contractions, or to initiate the uterine contraction if it is a post-dated delivery. So oxytocin will stimulate the uterine contraction. Enkephalins. Enkephalins are natural opioid. You know opioid. You must be knowing better, right? So these opioid are that feel-good factors that happens, right? So it's a pentapeptide. It has got opioid-like activity and endogenous opioid-like activity, producing similar analgesia to morphine, heroin, and other opioids, right? They are the natural tendency to deal with pain in the body, enkephalins. Then we have bradykinin, which is a nonapeptide, that is 9. It's a powerful vasodilator which will cause contraction of the smooth muscle, causing intense visceral and peripheral pain. Right? It can act as a vasodilator as well, because the elastin and smooth muscles in the blood vessels will be dilated. They will be relaxed, so causing the vasodilation. And also, once it can cause intense visceral and peripheral pain. Glucagon is again a pancreatic hormone. We speak so much. It is just a 10 amino acid ka peptide. It's a decapeptide. It sizes the insulin hormone, right? Just glucagon is a decapeptide. Substance P. Substance P is again, it's a pain-inducing substance. It's a decapeptide. It acts as a neurotransmitter. And we have so many antibiotics also, which are peptides. They are not big proteins. Gramicidin, polymyxin A, right? So all this will be biologically important peptides. Coming to the next, hormone is also a nonapeptide, right? We know all about vasopressin, what it does. It helps in the water reabsorption, right, from the collecting ducts and the distal tubules. And something about regulation, you all know it, but we are putting it in sentences, right? So from antidiuretic hormone is secreted by, this secretion is stimulated by the increased osmotic pressure. So whenever the volume of the blood increases, either due to salt retention or due to fluid overload, there will be pressure receptors in the all the vessels. So when these sense that there is an osmotic pressure increase, these osmotic receptors will be stimulating the ADH secretion. And what is the contradictory? It contradicts by right atrial distension. So it maintains the balance. So once the disorder happens, that is called as the diabetes insipidus, you will see polyuria as well as polydipsia. It is due to decreased synthesis of antidiuretic hormone. So antidiuresis, anti and decreased, so there is going to be diuresis, right? Or if it is nephrogenic, decreased responsiveness, so less sensitive to the action of the ADH. So again a bit of angiotensin 2, it's an octapeptide. Angiotensinogen is synthesized by the liver, then on the kidney it is converted to angiotensin 1, and in the lungs by the angiotensin converting enzyme ACE, it is converted into angiotensin 2. So this angiotensin 2 is an octapeptide. It acts on the adrenal medulla, which will stimulate the synthesis of aldosterone. Aldosterone is again a hormone which is salt regulating hormone, right? So biological importance of amino acids, we know, like first it acts as it forms an important, that is the structural unit of proteins. It can also help us to form glucose. It has its own enzymatic activity, storage of ammonia, transfer of ammonia. It acts as a buffer. It takes part in detoxification reactions and formation of biologically important peptides we have seen. So for today, the questions are going to be like 3 marks question. You are going to form biogenic amines, transmethylation, biologically important peptides, and then one more we missed. Biologically important glutathione. So I hope so you form the answers of all these 3, and later in the day I will try and give you you have a group, WhatsApp group with you, students? You have WhatsApp group with
Yes,
you?
ma'am.
Please add me. Can you add me?
Class with the
This is my number, Joseph. Right? Joseph, did you get my number? Joseph Ibrahim. I'm going to send you a
Yes,
QR
ma'am.
link. Okay, QR code. So please, all of you, when you add me into the group, I'll get to know. I'll give you a QR code that will take you to a Google form. In those Google forms, I'm going to give you few MCQs on these two classes that we have conducted about the amino acids. So hope so you respond to that and send me back. Right? Any queries? Any queries, students? Aron, Abhay, Aditi. Any queries? Hope so. We need more efforts from your side. You know, this is quite boring, but we got to go. This is inevitable in nowadays, right? Are you alive? As in class? Ananya. Are you there? Right. I'll stop here. Next, we'll start fresh with the proteins. Right? We had amino acids, we had biologically important peptides, everything is done. So, next class is going to be about proteins. A bit of overlapping. So, take note that all that had been applied to amino acids also applies to proteins. I am going to quickly cover those because it's quite repetitive and boring, because proteins are made up of amino acids, right? So, the most important things comes from the structural organization of proteins. 10 marks question, right? So, we'll start off with proteins fresh. Now we are dealing with bigger things, not amino acids and peptides. Straightway to proteins. Fine? Agreed? Meet in the next class?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah? Take
Yes,
care.
ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to end this class.
Yes, ma'am.
If any doubts you could have
Okay, ma'am.
asked, still there is time. Fine? Okay. Take care. Do not leave your house. Don't think it's
Thank you, ma'am.
legal holidays. Okay. It has to be you, your family, and your books. Don't forget that. Right? Take care. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. No question. Thank you, madam.